Hi, I am Lori Ann. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas, and we would like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
And in this episode, we're really pleased to have, we endearingly call him Doc Grayson, Dave Grayson here. He is a professor, author, and a master certified handwriting analyst. We're so proud to have you here. Thank you so much, Doc.
I'm
Yes,
sure
thank
glad
you,
to
Doc.
be. I sure glad to be here, and appreciate your calling me and asking me to be on. And it's an honor. So this will be fun.
Thanks. Yeah. So, Doc, I know you were in education. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got in education, kind of what you've done since you have been in education?
Well, I didn't want. I didn't know about being a teacher for a while, but late in high school, I decided I wanted to do that. So I went to Loyola University, and now back in the '60s when I started, you could in the private schools you could teach if you had 2 years of college. Well, when I got my 2 years of college, I began teaching, and then I worked my way through college because I didn't have enough money up front. So took me 10 years to graduate, but when I graduated, my brother sent me a telegram, and it said that was quick. So 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 my family keeps me under control for sure. But I got it. My first position was teaching first grade. That was what was there. They offered it, and I was kind of worried. I wasn't sure. Well, I took it and I loved it. I taught first grade for 6 years and second grade for 7 years. They promoted me after a couple years, so I really enjoyed that. I think those are my best years. I ended up teaching in university, but the easiest was university. The most difficult was first and second grade. And back then, of course, I taught cursive, but I wasn't a handwriting analyst then. I wish I was. But I really enjoyed that. Then I became assistant principal in a school, and they asked me to be assistant principal. I didn't really want that, and I said okay. And then after a couple of years, an opening came, and some people asked me to apply for it. It was for a principalship, and I applied for that. And 3 years into that, I quit. I didn't quit. I did, but I just didn't want it anymore. I'd much rather be in the classroom, get my hands dirty, than sit up there and do all that administration stuff. You can influence a school a lot as principal. Don't get me wrong, but it isn't nitty gritty teaching. So I went back and I got a job with computers, teaching computers in a school. And I did that quite a few years. I became the IT guy when that was when we had the old Apple machines. And then I was the computer teacher and part-time assistant principal. That was in a junior high. And I was that for quite a few years. And I was the IT guy. So I'd fix all the computers and all that kind of stuff, which was fun. And then I got a job at a university teaching teachers how to teach. And that was enjoyable. But I'm glad at that age because at then I was getting kind of at my end and it was easier teaching in a lot of ways. But some of the other things I did in my life, I think, were great. Everything I wanted to do, I got to do. Um, I always wanted to do magic, and I did that a little bit as a hobby. And then I hooked up with a friend of the family's who was a clown, and we went on the road and we spent a couple of years, mostly summers because I was teaching, but even during the year. In the summer, doing a lot of going around the country doing shows. He did his clown act, and I did my magic act, and that was really fun getting up on stage and doing that stuff. I enjoyed radio. I thought for many years I wanted to be a radio announcer. Well, um, I was offered a couple jobs. I went to did some training for that, and then I went to a school for the trades, Columbia College in Chicago, and I got a couple job offers, and one in Warsaw, Wisconsin, and one in South Dakota. I can't think of a town in South Dakota. I didn't take it. And then I discovered, talking to different people, a good way to get your foot in the door is become an engineer. So I studied, went to school, got my FCC license in radio broadcasting. That took a couple of years. I got that. Then I got a job in a Chicago radio station. And I worked still teaching all the time. I did this on weekends and at nighttime. So I got my fingers in the pie. Well, I was there. I'm pretty reliable, and I would cover shifts that people didn't want. I was single, so I could do that. And they found that I was reliable. So I was there a little less than a year. And a job opening up as a staff announcer and newsman opened up. And they approached me, asked me, do I want to do that? Interview for that. I said, sure. So I did. So I always like to think that, I was on Chicago radio for 18 years and didn't have to start out in Wausau, Wisconsin. Started right out in the big leagues. But I did it through the back door. I was, did the right thing. And that was, get my engineering degrees. And then I was a double whammy, because back then, every station had to have a first-class radio engineer on duty at all times, 24/7. Well, I could not only do the engineering, but the announcing. So instead of hiring two guys, they had one guy. And that's really how I managed to do it. And plus I wanted to work nights and weekends. Well, how many people want to work nights and weekends? So it was almost like I carved my own job out. And I was in that for 18 years. And then the station sold. That was in the late 80s, when there's a lot of changes in broadcasting, and all the big shots, they began buying all these radio stations. And now there's very few local stations. They're all big network conglomerates. But our station sold to a Spanish group, and I don't speak Spanish. So I was out of a job. And eventually that station, and the people sold to Disney. And then for years it was a Disney station. And now it's defunct. There's no, that station totally went off the air, like a lot of them have, because it's a totally different industry. Two things I'm glad about. I wouldn't want to be radio the way it is as much nowadays, because it's very impersonal. But I was there when it was really active. And teaching the same way. Now, 2/3 is internet. And I'm not sure it'd be as much fun teaching it that way. Plus, things have changed. So I've really had a good life with the broadcasting and the magic. And then, of course, I got interested in handwriting. I'll tell you how I got interested in handwriting. I was getting I got a couple of masters. I got one of my masters. First, I got it in administration, so I become a principal. And then I eventually got my doctorate, so I become a superintendent. But I didn't want to do that. But I wanted that in my back pocket. Well, then I thought, well, maybe I work with kids closely in first, second grade, and you're kind of counseling. I thought maybe I'd want to be a counselor. So I got a degree in counseling from Loyola University. But when I took my first class, they spent weeks, and I mean weeks, practically half the class. Well, how do you get to know your client? Are they lying or telling you the truth or playing games or making up things? How you can learn that. And I remember about 10 years earlier, I had my handwriting analyzed. We went with my family to a restaurant, and some guy came to the table. Everybody $2 from everybody. He would do the handwriting. No.
I'm joking.
No. Actually, it ended up to be Jack Schultz, who worked for the police department and the FBI, was an analyst. But anyway, I did it, and I was shocked at how much he knew about me, because I'm a pretty private person. And for days, I thought somehow my family got a hold of him, or he got a hold of my family, and he knew about me ahead of time. So it was all makeup stuff. Then I realized that didn't happen. So when I was sitting there in the class with trying to figure out how to figure out the person, I figured, wait a minute, we've been talking about this for weeks, and this guy did it in 30 seconds and came up with an hour of 3-4 minutes of about me, and it was all correct. So I went to the Dick phone book. Remember those? We used to have a
Oh,
phone.
yeah.
Yeah, we remember.
This is ancient times, yes. And
We
I
didn't
looked up, right. And I looked up handwriting, and there was the International Graphical Analysis Society that was based in Chicago. So I made an appointment, went downtown, visited them, talked to them, signed up for the course, and that's how I became a handwriting analyst. I always say it's called the International Grapho Analysis Society. And if you can say it, you get certified. And that opened up a whole new avenue for me. So, and I'll tell you, the background in radio and magic really helped because I ended up giving talks all over the country in handwriting, but I wasn't afraid to because you're already used to. Oh, I got to tell you an episode. The very first night I did my first newscast. It was 10:55. It gave the 5-minute newscast before the hour. And I was reading the news, and the ad at the end was for Time magazine, and I still remember it. And you could get it at your closest nude stand. It said nudes instead of newsstand. But so
knew
that
that would go viral.
gave me the courage to give the talks in handwriting.
I think Doc froze up.
That is so cool though. Honest to goodness, like starting from, in education to becoming, uh, and by the way, I just want to speak to this as we're waiting for Doc to return. When I was in Tucson, when I went to Chicago is when I first met Doc, but when we went to Tucson, Doc did perform his magic tricks on stage, and it was so much fun and so funny. Just so enjoyed it. Doc, glad you're back.
Well, I did. I'm glad we made. I lost you, and you guys froze up for a while, so I don't know what happened. But yeah, and I every time I would give a talk, I'd open it with a magic trick because it's a good catcher. You get the audience right away, and they'll listen to you a little bit more because it's a little bit different. And so it's been a big. I've had people over the years ask me, "Will you do some magic and some handwriting?" And I say, "No, I pretty well keep those separate." They were thinking that they're almost the same venue,
Yeah.
but so
One
all
thing
that's been great.
One
Go
thing
ahead.
that I found is, we've worked with people from India, and a lot of people in India believe that we can see the future with handwriting. No, you cannot. Just let's be clear, because for those listeners out there, Doc is my mentor, and I am also a master certified handwriting analyst. What we found though is we do need to make this clear. This is a science. We cannot tell your future. But with the graphotherapy, there could be changes in your future if you change your handwriting. But we're not going to be able to tell you what's in your future. But we might be able to see a little bit of what's happened in your past through your handwriting, just based on it. So I just want to make that very clear. Yes, it's not magic. It is a science. Magic is also a science. It's just a different kind of science.
Right. But getting back to India for just a moment, in the United States, handwriting is still not really accepted. There's always questioned, and voodoo and dee.
That too.
Yeah, and one of my school district I was assistant principal in was a school, a very high level school. I didn't want to apply because I thought they're way over my head, but they encouraged. I did get the job, but about a third were Indian. from India. They moved here though. And about 3, 4 months into my year, the newspaper came and did an interview of the new teachers for that year. And they interviewed me and they printed in the newspaper different teachers. And one of the things was I was a handwriting analyst. Soon as the Indian people found out about that, all of a sudden there was, oh, it was, they just thought that was the greatest thing ever. It was almost like you said, it's almost like magic.
Yeah.
And so again, their culture is strongly accepted and they thought it was an honor. You know, the Americans think, oh, what's this guy weirdo? So it is different attitude towards it.
But like you though, Doc, and sorry, I know that you have a question, Roy, but like you though, when people have questioned me and I said, okay, I'm going to give you a very tiny little report about you, just, you know, write something down. Then they look at me, they go, oh my goodness, how did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's real. And they're always amazed by what we can see. And even when I was working in customer service, when they had to sign a document in order to get, you know, their vehicles put in, I knew who I was dealing with. Somebody scribbling out their name, I knew they were not going to be as easy as somebody writing a big name, and it always turned out exactly right. So it's perfect in sales, it's perfect in knowing your clients, if you're, you know, whatever. But you have to understand, it's not believing it's understanding. It's not just even a belief, it is real. And I've learned this. So that's my dissertation.
Almost every nurse here I've probably analyzed because they found out about it and they'll come and ask. Not everybody, because not everybody wants it. But I was in the hospital for a couple of years ago for almost a month. And when the nurses come in every morning, somebody writes on the board who the person is, all that kind of stuff. And I would look at it and observe it and kind of thing. And I remember seeing one that was really executive all over it, executive scrawl. It had the sharp points and the persistence and just everything. And I asked one of the nurses one time, whose handwriting is that? No, I asked, but they weren't sure. So I found out the next day from the doctor, he knew who that nurse happened to be. And so I said, could I see her someday? Would you ask her to come in? Because it was so striking. I wanted to approach her, not her approach me. So she came in and I explained how I saw your handwriting. I said, you know, you're wasting your time being a nurse. You need to go on, become a doctor or some higher level of nursing because it's there. That drive is there. And she started she started to cry. She said, I've always wanted to do that, but I never thought I had the strength or the ability to do that. And I said, well, it reeks in your handwriting. So it's things like that you can do that just can, a little sample can turn people's lives around if you use it in the right direction. There are analysts that will look at it and tear the person apart. Oh, you've got temper, you're angry, you're frustrated, you don't do this well, you don't do that well. A lot of analysts do that, and I'm very sad over that. It's almost like they go for fishing expeditions to find out the negative things about people instead of the positive things. And I do not understand that, but I guess that's the way people are. But there's so much positive you can do with it. Just little tidbits. You don't have to go big things, just little drops here and there. And it really helped teaching youngsters. When I taught first and second grade, I didn't know it. But in junior high, where I was assistant principal for many, many years, it really helped because you knew which kids in class were lying or playing games. And I really felt I did a lot of good in helping keep some kids out of special ed. Some kids need to be in special ed, but too often it's a dumping ground. I can't manage that kid. I can't deal with that kid. So there's something wrong with him, not something wrong with my teaching abilities, something wrong with him or her. So they get them in the special ed. And it really hurts somebody. A good example was my nephew. My nephew got in junior high, got listed in the special ed. And he told me this years later, and it went in through high school. And he said, I never did a homework paper in my life through high school. Anytime he's very smart, but anytime they'd want to put him out, he'd start going goofy again. He said, I didn't want to do any work. He said, do I regret it now? But I got through high school without doing anything. And that's what happens as well. He can't do this, he can't do that. So now I'm terribly dyslexic, terribly. I have a hard time reading. I have to sometimes read it twice, or I have to use a paper and I'll follow underneath. So another brief story along this. um, I flunked kindergarten and first year of high school. Um, Not too many people flunk kindergarten, but I did. Uh, you know, that's my claim to fame. But I was in a Catholic school, and a nun said, he doesn't have good eye-hand coordination. And if you don't have good eye-hand coordination, you're not going to be able to learn to read well. Well, that is so true. I found that out when I was teaching first and second grade. So the kids that were having trouble with reading and didn't have eye-hand coordination, I would also, and during reading time, I'd have them throwing, we didn't have wiffle balls back then, or they weren't available. Crumpled up piece of paper and throw them in a basket, help them to, make baskets, help their eye-hand coordination. But anyway, that's why I had to repeat kindergarten. And I'm glad I did, because I struggled. And if I was a year ahead of time, I think I would have struggled even more. And then when I got into high school, I went to actually, all my young life, I wanted to be a priest. So I went to a seminary. Now, the first year at the seminary, you had 7 courses. We also had Latin and Greek. We had all the major courses in Latin and Greek. And I dyslexic with English, and now all of a sudden you throw Latin and Greek in it. It was just too much. And I failed Greek my first year. Now I had, instead of 7 credits, I had 6. Now you only need 4 to become a sophomore. So I I have the decision. I could stay at that school, but have to repeat the whole year, or I could go on to a different high school and go in the sophomore year. Well, at that point, I still wanted to be a priest, so I took the year over again, and luckily, I did pass the second year. But I struggled. I fought it. It was terrible. But even then, I didn't know anything about dyslexia. They still didn't. And I think back, if I was that way then, I would have been in special ed. I would have gained nothing. I would not be a teacher now. I wouldn't be a handwriting. I would be nothing. So, some ways these labels can really put you down and throw you in the back and make it more difficult. It made it easier for me. Hold on just one second.
Sorry, David.
I'm on a live call right now. Okay, thanks. Sometimes it's easy to just fluff it off, but this way I had to work at it and struggle and do it 3 or 4 times. Now, if I knew what I knew back then about handwriting, I would have known how to play the game, but I didn't then. So, but that's all been a blessing. And when I started teaching, I always asked the principal for the worst kids, because 2 reasons. One, because I knew most of the problem was, I'm talking about first, second grade now. I mean, they weren't axe murderers, so I wasn't worried. But I know most of the problem would be because they couldn't do the work, so they were clowns and goofs all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I worked at, the idea of help them learn more about themselves, help themselves first, then we'll go to the schoolwork. And it's funny, when I had the kids, first couple of weeks and months playing games that would cause marbles and things that would cause them not to have to do the work, after a couple of months, they wanted to be with all the other kids to do the reading. So now they had personal reasons to want to be there, as opposed to me making them.
We did talk about that, Doc. Just sorry to interject, but and Roy and I have talked about this, like, labeling. There's the big one as ADHD. I'm not exactly sure that, but I'm thinking I probably was that. My son was probably that, because I couldn't keep him quiet or sound, and I had some issues, although I could focus more. but never stopping.
Right.
And I do believe, Roy, you have a question. I know that you were.
Well, no, I was just going to say, talking about teaching first graders and second graders back in the 60s. Now, I started school in the late 50s and I was in grade school through the early 60s. And, I can remember back, all the teachers then were all women
Yes.
for
Yes.
elementary, and except for coaches when you got up in fifth and sixth grade, because our elementary school was up to sixth grade. And, pretty much the majority of the teachers were women until you got to maybe the fifth and sixth grade. So was that where you were teaching, was that uncommon for a male to be a first and second grade teacher?
Very much uncommon. In fact, and in some ways, it was I was suspect too, and
I
I know,
was going to ask you that
and I
question.
know I was very much suspect. Now, I didn't go out wanting to teach first grade. That was the job opening, and they were looking for teachers, and it was like, I'm sure they felt they just wanted a warm body in there, and all I wanted to do was get my foot in the door. Well, it worked out perfectly, but I know for many years, I started in '63, and I know through the '60s and early '70s, there was a big suspect there. And that was hard to deal with because even if I go out with a couple friends and I figure somebody's going to spot me, I'm with another guy friend, what are they going to think? So it was hard on my part too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wondered about that. And that was kind of where I was heading with that question because, of course, I can remember back in the '60s, and a lot of things were changing,
Right.
And there was a lot of, but I will say this: back then, as a child, we respected teachers.
Oh yeah, it was totally different.
Teachers, I mean, they were like your mom and dad. I mean,
Right, right, right,
there was
right.
respect for the teachers. It's not that way now,
No,
but,
no,
but yeah,
no. Yeah, but that part was kind of difficult because you always felt, different comments were made and you just had to kind of bite the bullet and just think. Plus, I was single. That even made it worse.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but eventually, later on, it was A, once I got accepted, it was totally different. And B, times slowly changed too.
Yeah.
It made it easier.
Did you ever do any magic for your kids at school?
Um, well, every year I do a big magic show at the end of the year.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing when you were in social activities, PTA or whatever, you were always called on to do a magic trick, weren't you?
Oh, always something you want to do. Yeah. I always had things in my pocket, a couple coins, a couple other things, because you always want to see a trick. Ooh, do a magic trick.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so much fun. So we also know that you're an author, and if you want to talk to us a little bit about your books, we'd love to hear that.
Well, I've done 4 books so far, and pretty soon I'll finish coloring the 5th book. So, yeah, no, I have. My first book was in 1981, and it was a thick book, about 220 pages, Better Understanding Your Child Through Handwriting. I got loads of TV and radio and newspaper articles. That was very fun. The good thing was for me is I was in radio at the same time on weekends. So I was very comfortable with the microphone. I was never really nervous. When I first started, I was, but after a while, it's like my brother. But yeah, that was fun. But it was totally different. Then you had to type every page. It was all galley sheets, nothing to do with the computer. And you'd have to type perfectly. You make one mistake, you do the whole page over again. And I can't tell you how many. Then I had to physically jockey all the graphics all over. And the book is full of graphics. So it was difficult. Now writing a book the mechanics of it is so much easier. You type it, you format the margins the way you want. Back then you missed a margin a little bit, the whole page had to be retyped. You could just type part of it, the whole page went over again. But yeah, they're all on handwriting. One is more on coaching. And I'm in the middle of another book on graphotherapy. Graphotherapy is there, but there's not a lot written on it how to do it. So I'm writing more of a how-to book, mostly geared, or mostly it'll have to be totally geared to handwriting analysts. And I think I told you, Lorianne, that Bart kind of wants to build a program. He'll do some videos around it, and that'll be another program of graphotherapy, because a lot of people know about it, but the mistake analysts make is they change the handwriting. They'll look at, oh, he's got a temper, we got to stop that. Oh, he's got sensitive criticism, we've got to correct that. No, I'm emphasizing so many times in the book, you're changing the personality, not the handwriting. You may not want to change the temper in that person. You may not want to change some other trait in that person. So they can't look at the handwriting and change it. They've got to look at the person and change the person, and they change the person through the handwriting. But it's a difficult book to write, but a fun book. I'm having a lot of mental blocks on it, but that's more reasons than one. But
exactly what you're saying though, with the handwriting analyst, they'll look at something and go and find the negative traits instead of the positive. But what we have learned very strongly is that you have to stack the traits, and there are certain things that are defense mechanisms that if you take that away from somebody, they're going to end up being more vulnerable. And so you really have to watch, what are you saying? Okay, fear of failure might be something you want to take away from, but if something else, the defense, you might not want to. So you have to know, and it's exactly right. I'm so excited you're writing that book, because I believe in this so much. It's changed me, and I know it can change other people, but I also know if I'm feeling secretive, I'm not going to try and open up certain things that I'm secretive about, because that's my defense mechanism.
Right. And the book has changed from when I started. At first I thought, well, I'd show some traits and how you can change them, but that doesn't work, because you can't, because that would be different for Roy, would be different for you, Lorianne.
Yeah.
So I'm writing more in general of different things to look at, and like you said, cluster together and come up, make sure you're making the right change.
Absolutely.
And involving the client, not just telling him, asking him what he wants, what she wants, as opposed to telling him, we're going to change this.
Yeah.
You don't get along well with your father, so we're going to straighten that out.
Then that's not coaching, because coaching is guiding, not telling. I have a quick question. I know that Roy probably will want to ask you too. I know that you've gone through some health issues, and that you've continued to survive beautifully, but you were writing that you were journaling about certain feelings that you have during that journey. Are you still doing that?
Never did. I'm not a journalist. My theory is that was yesterday, today is today.
Okay.
That's the way. I just don't want to do that. Plus I'm dyslexic. Writing is not easy anyway.
True.
So that's the last thing I want.
So because you were telling me about how, it's really interesting, the different thoughts that go through, because I know Roy he has a book coming out that is, discussing certain things about, never mind. I do journal. I do journal about some of my dreams and some of the things that I go, I want my children to know about this. So I make sure that it's in my journal.
Oh, I think that journaling is great, because it makes you focus on different things. That's why if I came to you for help, you would tell me, I've got a journal. And I would tell you, no, I don't. I don't want to do it. And that's just the idea of, you've got to find out what the person wants to accomplish and work with the person, not work with what's best. But journaling, I think, is great for most people. It's not for me. So. Plus, I'm a light line writer, and light line writers, what happened 3 months ago? I don't know. Nor do I want. That's why I don't hold grudges or frustrations or anger or anything else, because half the things I forget.
Yeah, I like that.
The negative side of it is I don't remember a lot of things. I have to go to my brother and say, "Do you remember this? Do you remember this?" He remembers everything. He's a heavy writer. I am not. but I'm happy with my lot. I'd rather be that way than, oh, I can remember that time he said that about me. I'm so angry.
Yeah, good point.
Well, you
But
know, Doc, one of the
it,
interesting things is I've heard you on more than one occasion. You've always talked about you've had a good life, you have no regrets,
nope,
you know, and I
not one.
mean, and then listen to your kind of your story, you know, you found your passion. Well, actually, you found several passions.
Exactly. And that's why I'm so thankful to God. Everything I wanted to do, I just wanted to do a little bit. I just wanted to be a teacher. And I got my first job and I thought, I want to teach here forever. Well, we got a principal in there that didn't like me. And I think because I still go back and I will cross my heart and hope to die, it's because I was a man teaching in primary grades. I still say that. So she got me pushed out. She was very clever. What she did, she said, next year we'd like to introduce science. Would you be our science teacher? I said, sure. I go to different classes and teach science. Well, then the following year, well, we don't have room in the budget anymore for a science teacher. So she was able to get me out that way. And I look back and I know exactly what she did. But then I look back, that was the I'd still be stuck in that school. I got to become an analyst, all this other stuff that I wouldn't have there. So everything has been a stepping stone. At the time, it was a loss. Now I look back, well, that's one of the best things. Making me repeat, I don't know about, I never remember repeating kindergarten, but repeating high school, it was embarrassing. You went back and all your friends in the other line were sophomores and you were here, but it's something I wanted. And that taught me to, you know, maybe I don't look the best, but I don't care. I want to do what I want to do. It's important to me. And I gained from all that. So that's why I say, and all I wanted to do was, oh, become a radio announcer. And where did I do? I started in Chicago. I ended in Chicago. You know how many people would die to talk on the air for 1 hour in Chicago? And I
No
got to
kidding.
do it 7 days a week, weekdays and then weekends. So, how can I complain? Here, just wanted to learn handwriting analyst. I'm not braggy, but one of the well-known handwriting analysts. And all I want to do is just become an analyst. But again, it wasn't me, it's God pushed me into all and opened all those doors.
I believe that. I think, I was telling a friend of mine, as I look back at the little house that I had that would be worth like 5 times what it's worth, like when I first bought it.
Hmm.
And, you can look back and go, wow, I would have had that. But, I wouldn't have had all the other things that came along with it, including the handwriting, because I was doing that while I was in a certain part of my life. And that certain part of my life introduced me to you. And then another part of the life introduced me to Roy. And I thought you can't look back and be sorry for anything, because everywhere, I think there's a purpose for every failure, loss, you gain
100%.
even more.
I
So
agree
that's my belief
100%.
too.
Yeah.
Well,
And I always say you learn more from failure than you do from success. A lot.
Absolutely.
yeah.
I had some bumps along the road, and when I look back, um, a couple of people I thought were my friends, when the chips were down, they turned their back. I never saw them again. And the ones I never expected, hardly knew, came to my aid, and I've got better friends for life than I did before. So that also helps. Everything I have done or has happened has been a plus factor, except the Cubs losing, but that's another story.
But I read this somewhere, and I think when I was maybe a teenager, and I've always go back to it is that people come in and out of your life, you know, and some of them come at the right time. They're the right person, and I honestly believe those are angels sent there
Yes,
to help
I
you.
do too. In their own way, they're angels. Yes.
I really sincerely believe that, because you can be thinking about, oh gosh, and all of a sudden somebody shows up, then they've got the answer or they've got the solution, or they help you through something, and they may just be somebody that passes through for a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Different ones I can say the same thing. How did they happen to be there and why? But you look
Right.
back, you know why. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
I honestly believe that to be true.
This is beautiful. So are your books on Amazon for if any of our listeners want to
Sometimes Amazon has Handwriting Secrets Revealed.
Okay.
And it's also on, you can get the other book, Better Understanding Your Child Through Handwriting, on eBay sometimes.
Okay.
But
We really appreciate you, Doc. You don't know just how much, and I am so blessed to have you in my life. Thank you.
well, thank you guys. And I really appreciate this. This is fun, a lot of fun. Brings back radio memories.
A really incredible guy, Doc. You've really got some awesome accomplishments in your life, man. You should be proud.
You see, you say that, and I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. But I think about, no. I said, boy, did I fool those people.
You just look at it as you were living your life. I mean,
But it's just my life. Yeah, it's and I'll be gone soon. Some people hope earlier than later, but I'll be gone soon, and it'll be a memory, and people go on. But
No, I don't know.
I've had a
because
great
we had
fling.
our
I had a great fling.
graduation, Doc, and I think that there was a lot of fighting about you going before soon. A lot of people were telling you you're not allowed to, so you're not allowed to.
Yeah, I know.
I
It's
don't know,
funny.
Doc. There's not many people that can say they've had an impact on other lives as much as you have. And for you, it was just your job or whatever. But
Yeah.
you know, if you think back, how many lives have you really impacted?
Well, and I feel grateful for that. I really, really do. And I think another good thing that happened was when they told me I had 3 to 5 months to live. It really jerks your mind in a different way, and you get ready for it. Now it's almost like a frustration. I'm ready. Let's go. But it also makes you have a different kind of a focus. And I'm ready to go as long as I can, and I'll be as active as I can. And yet, if it's tomorrow, I'm ready. And I can't explain it, what I felt like the day before they told me, and how it changed after a couple of days later when you start thinking about it and your mind the difference. It's almost a comforting feeling, which sounds silly, but it is. And I'm ready. But the way I've been lately, I think I could go another. I'm fearful 10 years, but I could go another 10 years. Hospice won't be happy, but that's their problems. I'm going to goof up their percentages.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank both of you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. It sure is fun, and I'm proud to be on your program.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, we love having you, Doc. You're an awesome guy. You really are.
Thank you, and good luck to you guys, and hopefully sometime we can meet again.
Absolutely.
Be great.
Yeah. Like Roy Rogers, until we meet again. Thanks.
Take care.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Bye.